In the small town of Ann Arbor in Michigan, David finished a school day, and before leaving, he decided to give a gift to his friend Millie, the girl he was secretly deeply in love with. Delighted to receive a small snow globe, Millie thanked David. While the two were talking, Mark appeared and snatched the gift from the girl's hands. Annoyed by Mark's bullying attitude, he demanded that he return the gift to Millie, but Mark ignored him and threw it onto the nearby frozen lake. David immediately rushed out onto the lake to retrieve the gift. As soon as he picked it up, the ice surface around him began to crack, causing him to fall into the freezing water. In desperation, Millie ran to save him but was stopped by Mark, who said that doing so would only make things worse. Panicking as he was about to drown, David suddenly teleported to a corridor of the public library in the city, which left him utterly confused. Although he did not understand what was happening, he still felt relieved to be alive and decided to return home. Since being abandoned by his mother when he was a child, David was forced to live with his father William, who always treated him poorly, making his life devoid of even a single happy day. When he arrived home, he was stopped by William and asked why he was soaking wet. Still in shock from what had just happened, he did not answer and ran into his room, locking the door. This angered William, causing him to break the door and storm in, but upon entering, he discovered that his son had disappeared. At the same time, David teleported to the public library again and gradually realized he had the ability to teleport to any place. Trying to find a way out of there, he ran to the exit doors. But upon realizing he was completely locked inside, a surge of anger flared up, causing him to instantly teleport back to his bedroom. Realizing he finally had a chance to change his life, he began preparing to leave. Before leaving, he went to Millie's house. Millie was completely devastated, believing that David had died in the lake incident. While crying on her bed, she suddenly heard a strange sound in the garden. When stepping out, she saw the snow globe that David had given her. This left her extremely confused. Afterwards, David went to another town and rented a small room in a hotel. He went to the central square, where he practiced his teleportation ability. However, because he still lacked experience, he accidentally teleported onto a tree branch and tumbled to the ground. Sometime later, he returned to the hotel, studied a travel guidebook, and tried using his power to go to famous landmarks in the city. Suddenly, David teleported into a building which he realized he had visited in the past. Once he gradually gained control of his power, he decided to go to a bank in the city. He asked a security guard to lead him to the guest restroom. On the way, he carefully observed the vault area, trying to memorize the location. That night, David prepared for a break-in. After gathering all the necessary equipment, he teleported to the building's restroom, then used his special ability to get inside the vault and began taking all the money inside the bank. After repeating this process several times, he accumulated a massive amount of money, enough for him to buy everything he had ever dreamed of. Over the years, David increasingly improved his teleportation ability, and thanks to that, he became an incredibly wealthy young man. He lived in a massive, luxurious apartment where he frequently teleported around the house to move. Despite possessing a supernatural power, he did not care at all about helping others and was only focused on his own life. He used his power for anything he wanted, such as surfing at deserted beaches or admiring the Egyptian landscapes from atop the great monuments in the middle of the desert. Meanwhile, in a forest, Roland and his team of agents were hunting down some people by using electrical wire traps to stun them. It turned out that these agents were actually hunters specializing in hunting jumpers, people with the ability to teleport. Upon catching them, this group would immediately eliminate the target. At night, David returned to his apartment and was unexpectedly ambushed by Roland. Roland began interrogating him, stating that he had been tracking him for over *8 years. To escape the ambush, he tried to use his power. But Roland used an electric shock device, preventing him from teleporting. After subduing David, Roland continued the interrogation, asking how he could have survived all this time without being caught. David tried to look towards the photos to teleport, but because the electric current was still flowing through his body, he could not leave the apartment and could only teleport to the second floor, using the library ladder to climb up. Roland immediately chased after David and continued to stun him with another electric shock. And then he threw him down from the second floor and intended to finish him off with a baton. However, David dodged the strike, but before he could escape, he was shot by one of Roland's traps. It was an electrical wire firmly attached to his body. David quickly teleported to his private vault, used a tool to cut the wire, and finally escaped from the pursuit. Furious, Roland contacted the Jumper Hunters Dispatch Center and ordered the summoning of all agents to begin the manhunt for David. The next day, David decided to go to Millie's house. After meeting her mother, David asked about Millie's whereabouts. She said that Millie was working at a bar in town. Hearing this, David immediately set off for it. Seeing his friend was still doing fine after everything, David intended to leave, but was intercepted by Mark along the way. He had recognized him. Trying to avoid detection, David sought a way to slip away, but Mark's shouting caused Millie to spot her friend, and as a result, the two reunited. While they were talking, Mark bothered Millie again, making David angry, who rushed in to attack Mark and punched him in the face. Mark dragged David outside and beat him to a pulp with many punches and kicks. Thinking he had defeated his opponent, Mark celebrated his victory, but right at that moment, David grabbed him and teleported them both elsewhere. As a result, they both appeared inside a bank vault. Realizing that he had just been teleported in the blink of an eye, Mark panicked completely and begged David to let him go. Afterwards, David returned to the bar so he could talk to Millie. When Millie asked in confusion where he had been all this time, David decided to lie that he had gotten a great job at a bank, and that was why he became wealthy. At this point, David told Millie that he was planning a trip to Rome, and knowing that his friend had always dreamed of setting foot in that city, he invited her to go along. Without thinking much, Millie immediately agreed, and the two set off for Rome. At the police station, Roland asked the captain for permission to interrogate Mark regarding the report against David. But the officer refused, stating that he could only allow it if Roland presented a federal arrest warrant. Enraged, Roland attacked the officer, knocking him unconscious, and thereby managed to break into the interrogation room. While questioning Mark, Roland discovered that his target was traveling with Millie, and both had just boarded a flight to Rome. In the tourist city, David and Millie decided to visit the famous Colosseum, but as soon as they arrived, a security guard informed them that the attraction was closed. Annoyed, David turned away from the staff and stealthily used his power to open a gate no one noticed, then invited Millie to go inside together. The couple continued exploring the structure without knowing that they were being watched by a mysterious young man hiding on the buildings. During their exploration, David was intercepted by Griffin. This person revealed that he also had the same power as David. Realizing he was not the only one with a supernatural ability, David was extremely confused and asked how this could happen. Griffin explained that although jumpers are extremely powerful and hard to track, they still always live in danger because they are constantly hunted by hunters. Right at that moment, a group of agents appeared. To avoid being caught again, David immediately teleported to the upper floor while Griffin prepared to face the attackers with a baseball bat. Although David temporarily escaped the ambush, he was caught in a trap and dragged back to the center of the Colosseum. Realizing that his friend might be in danger, Griffin teleported around the area at a dizzying speed, using his power to pin a hunter against the wall. Then he grabbed the remaining one and threw him off a rock, rendering the opponent unconscious. After the battle, Griffin revealed that those men were members of the Paladin organization, a group of people living with the purpose of exterminating all jumpers in the world. Now that they had been discovered at the Colosseum, Griffin decided to flee, while David used his jump scar to track him. Frustrated by David's reckless action, Griffin ordered him to leave while he tried to hide important documents in the house. When he returned, David intended to leave with Millie, but both were stopped by the police and arrested. At the police station, Millie pleaded with the officers to release David, but they ignored her and told her to wait quietly in the reception room. While David was being interrogated, the officer received news that the local deputy chief of police had just arrived, so he left the room, leaving David alone. Right then, David's mother appeared. She handed her son the key to unlock the handcuffs and ordered him to leave immediately. At the same time, she warned him not to let Millie tag along unless he wanted her to be eliminated. Confused, David ran after his mother, but was intercepted by another police officer who tried to arrest him. To escape from that man, David teleported him to one of the statues in Egypt and quickly returned to the police station. After reuniting with his girlfriend, David told her that the best thing right now was to leave the town. Millie was perplexed and asked why her boyfriend was acting so agitated. However, David refused to answer her questions. After packing their luggage, they both headed to the airport. Shortly after, he said that he would not be able to accompany Millie on the flight back home because he did not want her getting dragged into his personal troubles. At Ann Arbor, Roland decided to go to David's old house. After being welcomed by David's father, he revealed himself to be a federal agent and began questioning William as to where his son currently was. However, the older man said that David had vanished for *8 years, and despite contacting the authorities, they still couldn't find him. Roland continued to ask about the whereabouts of David's mother, and William replied that the woman had walked out when David was only *5 years old, and since then, he hadn't heard any news from her. Meanwhile at home, Griffin was playing a video game with his newest companion, who was actually the corpse of a paladin he had eliminated earlier. Suddenly David appeared and asked Griffin why they were being hunted by these hunters when they had never done anything wrong to them. Griffin explained that since medieval times, jumpers like them had been hunted and eradicated by paladins because these zealots were religiously superstitious, believing that people with teleportation abilities should not exist. Griffin also mentioned that these paladins were completely insane. They had even wiped out many innocent families just to track down a target. Hearing this, David grew extremely worried and instantly teleported to his father's house. But upon arriving, he discovered that he had passed away, so he immediately used his power to take him to the hospital. The next day, David returned to Griffin's house and was told by his friend that he had just come back from another paladin hunt and had thrown one of them into the ocean to let him swim with the sharks. David then requested to use Griffin's photos to find Roland and protect Millie, but Griffin stopped him, saying that the hunter was far stronger than David imagined. Nevertheless, David still asserted that they should team up, stating that as long as Roland was alive, Millie would remain in danger. However, Griffin remained adamant about acting alone and ordered David not to follow him. Despite the warning, David still used his power and tracked Griffin via the jump scar. He appeared in the kitchen of a Japanese restaurant and after leaving there, began tailing Griffin on the streets of Tokyo. David persuaded that if they teamed up as a real pair, they would become invincible and could combine their information to track down and eliminate Roland. Even so, Griffin still resolutely refused to partner with his friend and teleported to a car dealership. Afterwards, both acquired a luxury car and drove through the streets at high speed, using the teleportation ability to perform a series of spectacular maneuvers across the city. While driving, Griffin recounted that he had once met a jumper who tried to destroy an entire building using only his power, but because he consumed too much energy, that person died midway through executing the plan. After a long night traveling with his new friend, Griffin decided to help David search for Millie. But when they teleported to the airport, they realized that the girl's flight had landed over an hour ago. Therefore, they both decided to split up. Griffin said that he would go get weapons while David would go find his girlfriend. The young man quickly arrived at Millie's house, and upon seeing her again, he confessed that he had never worked in a bank and that they needed to leave immediately. Right at that moment, David spotted Roland having just arrived, and he instantly took action, teleporting with Millie to Griffin's house. Not long after, the Paladin squad also breached the apartment. Using a type of tracking spray, Roland followed David's teleportation trace. From there, his assistants prepared a high-tech device capable of reopening the teleportation portals created by jumpers. Upon passing through the portal, the Paladins reached Griffin's house and began hunting the two young men. At this point, both were hiding behind concrete pillars, trying not to be detected. While hiding, David accidentally saw a photo of his mother. Distracted, he revealed his position and was immediately spotted by one of the enemies, leading to his capture by Roland. Taking advantage of his target being caught in the electrical traps, Roland approached and prepared to draw a knife to finish off David. The young man asked why they insisted on exterminating jumpers when they had never harmed anyone. Roland replied that sooner or later, that supernatural power would corrupt their minds and turn them into a real threat to humanity. Just then, Griffin unexpectedly appeared and attacked the hunters with a flamethrower, forcing them to retreat and saving David's life. However, Roland was still alive and charged in to attack Griffin, ultimately using an electrical wire to capture him. Believing that he had subdued both jumpers, Roland prepared to strike and kill Griffin, revealing that he himself was the one who had annihilated the young man's entire family. Hearing this, Griffin became incredibly furious and executed an extremely powerful teleportation, pushing Roland through the cave wall and throwing him outside. Meanwhile, Millie quietly slipped away and began looking for David. Outside, Griffin used his power to break free from Roland and counterattacked him. He teleported a bus from London to the middle of the desert, causing the vehicle to run over Roland and destroy his entire base. Due to that destruction, Millie fell into a dazed state. So that she wouldn't be killed, Griffin used the flamethrower to attack the cowardly paladin once again. To escape the flames, Roland used the teleportation portal he had opened earlier to return to Millie's house. But Griffin was extremely enraged at this point, and he immediately chased after the enemy. Thanks to that, Millie finally managed to rescue David. After apologizing to her, he prepared to take her back home. But right at that moment, Griffin appeared and announced that he had managed to steal the portal opening machine. The problem was that just seconds before the teleportation rift closed, Roland had managed to use a cable to grab Millie and pull her over to the other side. In despair, the young man said that he would go save his girlfriend, but Griffin stopped him and revealed that he planned to send a bomb to Millie's house because the entire Paladin squad was gathered inside. Believing that his friend, with such madness, could get Millie killed, David decided to flee with the explosive device and was chased by his teammate. After a flurry of punches atop one of the pyramids in Egypt and a pursuit across an urban bridge in the area, the two continued their battle, creating teleportation rifts in many places around the world as they fought over the detonator. At this moment, David teleported to the top of a building and threw the device to the ground, but Griffin did not give up and tried to retrieve it, so David lunged after him. And in their mid-air battle, they teleported to a large swimming pool, which cushioned their fall. Right after, David teleported to the middle of the Arctic Ocean to stop his companion from destroying the device. Griffin appeared with a car and used it to ram David before they both fell into the freezing water. The two teleported again to a battlefield where a fierce military engagement was taking place. Wasting no time, Griffin retrieved the detonator, and before leaving, he said goodbye to David. Due to the destruction caused by artillery shells, one of the power stations began to collapse. Realizing this, David grabbed Griffin and forced him to teleport together with him into the middle of the tower's electrical wires. Now, having defeated his companion, David returned to Ann Arbor, where he attempted to break into Millie's house. The problem was that it was all just a trap. And as soon as he approached his girlfriend, David was swiftly captured by the Paladins. They attached multiple electrical wires to his body. Outraged by everything Roland had caused in his life, David tried to channel all his strength, creating a small earthquake that began destroying Millie's entire house. At this point, he pushed his power to its absolute maximum, and after destroying a large portion of the house, he teleported along with a chunk of the wall to the bottom of the city's river. In just a few seconds, the entire structure was swept apart by the water currents, causing both of them to start sinking. Millie quickly freed herself and swam to David. To save her from drowning, David teleported the remainder of the house to the public library, completely destroying the place. After catching her breath, Millie crawled over to her boyfriend. But before the two could escape, Roland emerged from the rubble. To protect Millie, David took her to the other side of the library and then teleported to confront the old man. He told Roland that he would never become the kind of jumper the Paladins wanted to eradicate. And instead of killing him, David decided to spare his life and teleported Roland to the middle of a vast desert, thousands of kilometers away from civilization. A few days later, David went to his mother's house and asked her why she had abandoned him when he was a child. Hearing this, Mary revealed that she had always been a member of the Paladins. And when she discovered her son was a jumper at only *5 years oldest, she had to leave, otherwise she would have been forced to kill her own child. Even though she was a member of the Hunter organization, Mary said that she would give David another chance and told him to be more careful from now on. Now free, David reunited with his girlfriend so they could begin their next adventure around the world. If you had a teleportation superpower like David, what would you do? Leave a comment below to let us know. Today's story ends here. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.